Good evening, councillors, senior staff members, members of the public in the gallery, Dr Newkirk, and also to the ladies that are in the press gallery. Thank you for being with us this evening for this August Ordinary Council meeting. First thing we'll do is do an acknowledgement to country. The Shire of Esperance acknowledges the Kepakul Wurundjeri people of the Noongar Nation and the Naju people who are the traditional custodians of this land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians today. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologise, I didn't acknowledge the people that are watching this meeting online, so thank you also for joining us. We go into the opening part of our meeting, and we have 8 councillors present. We have apologies from Councillor Flanagan. Any other apologies?
Just Mr Walker is on leave, so we've got Acting Director Mr Dylan Gleave in.
Thank you. And so then we go to, that was apologies, we go to applications for leave of absence. Any councillor seeking leave of absence? No? Okay. So then we go on announcements by the person presiding without discussion. And I have no comments to make at this stage. So we go to item 6 on your agenda, which is the declarations of financial interests as the first item, 6.1. Is there any declarations of financial interests? No. Then we go to declarations of proximity interests. No declarations. We go to declarations of impartiality interests. Any declarations? That's nil. Thank you. So then we go to public question time. And Dr Newkirk has indicated he wished to ask a question. So Dr Newkirk, I'll invite you forward to the microphone there and you can ask your question.
Thank you, Mr President. I'd first like to acknowledge the written response I got from Felicity Baxter on numerous questions I posed when we had the meeting, especially meeting on the budget. It's most appreciative. It was quite lengthy and it's really helpful to have all the details. So thank you very much for that. The question I wanted to raise today is to do with the wood chips. I come past Chadwick and I've noticed the growing pile of wood chips there, and that reminded me of the risk that was talked about here in council of the trees that were uninsurable at the site that was set aside for the west side. And the questions I have, because I haven't noticed that in any of the minutes, has the Shire now got a contract for the removal of those uninsured trees? Who carries the risk during the time that those trees actually are extracted from the site? And thirdly, how much revenue is flowing to the Shire this financial year, and where is that shown in the budget?
Okay, thank you. To the CEO, do you wish to answer those questions or take them on notice?
Oh, we can answer those. So Council has issued a tender to have those trees removed to Southern Pacific Fibre. The trees are probably 2/3 of the property is actually removed at this point in time, and it's going in line essentially with the tender. The yield amounts are probably in line with the tender process, and as Council's resolution, the proceeds from the extraction of those trees will go back to the waste reserve, because the waste reserve essentially paid for the land when we purchased it.
And how much do we expect to?
I think it would be. It is going to depend upon the final yields, so it's hard to say exactly at this point, but it would be somewhere in the order of 300,000 or thereabouts.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr Newkirk. No further members of the public, so there's no further question time. So, councillors, we then go to public addresses or deputations. Will, Mr. CO? Petitions. Thank you. So we go to item 10 on the agenda, councillors, the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 22nd of July. Is someone prepared to move? It's been moved by Councillor Horan, seconded by Councillor McMullen. Is there any debate or corrections? If there's no debate, no corrections, I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That is carried 8 votes to 0. Thank you. So we now go to delegates' reports without discussion, and the first one is Councillor Oborne, and she has no report at this tonight's meeting. So we go to Councillor Flanagan, who's not with us, and Councillor O'Donnell. Is there anything you wish to add to your reports there, Councillor?
No,
Thank you. And then we go to Councillor Graham. That's your list of your attendance. Thank you. So we move to Councillor Horan.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. And then so it's Councillor McMullen.
Nil to report, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
That's taken, Chair.
Councillor De Haas. My apologies, I went past you. Nothing to add. Thank you. And mine are listed there for you, councillors. Okay, thank you for councillors who represented us everywhere over the course of the month, and thank you sincerely to all councillors who attended the Vietnam Vets service when Councillor Chambers, myself and the CEO were out of town. I appreciated your going along there and supporting the Vietnam veterans on their day of memorial from Long Tan Day. So now we go to the next item is the matters requiring a determination of council, and the first item is an item from External Services, a development application oversized building on the items on page 12, and the recommendation is on page 15. Are there any questions to Mr. Henley, who's with us tonight, in regards to this item? No questions? No questions. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation then? Councillor Oborne.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Oh. Do I have to read the whole lot?
No, but I'd like you to read the first part and then...
I move the
dot
officer's
points.
recommendation that council approve development application 10.2022.5051.1 for an oversized building at lot 56 Irene Street, Castletown, subject to the following conditions 1 through 8, and noting the following advice notes 1 through 5.
Do you mind to just clarify it was 1 through 8, or are you happy with 1 through 9?
Oh, sorry, 1 through 9.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Okay. Right. Thank you. So it's moved by Councillor Oborne. Is it seconded? Seconded, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Oborne, you can speak to your motion.
I note that there were no objections. The neighbour actually sent through a non-objection. It's a legitimate use. It's the correct zoning. It's a large block, and it's consistent with our previous decisions in our monthly oversized shed agenda item.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor O'Donnell, do you wish to speak as a seconder to the motion?
This is a standard recommendation for an outbuilding. It's just that it's over the officer's ability to approve this development, and I note that it's for a boat and a caravan. So please vote for this.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion or an amendment? There's no speaker against, no amendment. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried. Carried 8 votes to nil. So we move on then to item 12.1.2, the proposed CAT local law. This is on page 20, and with the recommendation on page 23. Are there any questions you might have here to, I guess this one goes to Mr. Henley? Any questions you might have? Clearly understood that it's prepared, ready to go to, the policy's prepared, ready to go for public consultation. No questions?
I'll move the motion.
It's moved by Councillor Chambers.
I'll move that the council requests the CEO to give, give local public notice of the proposed Shire of Esperance CAT local law 2022 in accordance with section 3.12 3 of the Local Government Act 1995. 2, to forward a copy of the proposed local law and public notices to the Minister for Local Government. And 3, further prepare a further report at the conclusion of the public submission period to enable Council to consider submissions. 4, advocate to local members of Parliament for the CAT Act 2011 to be amended to enable the proposed CAT Law 2022 to be considered by the Joint Standing Committee on Delegated Legislation.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Chambers. Is it seconded to the motion? Seconded by Councillor De Haas. Councillor Chambers, your opportunity to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support this going out to public comment, and I urge everyone to actually have a look at it and to come back with their interpretation and any possible improvements that we can put into the local law. I'd also encourage everyone to talk to their local members in regards to changing the CAT law to make sure that we can make sure that this law is effective. It's not just a piece of legislation that achieves very little. There are some really good changes in there that can be made to restrict certainly cats that are wandering. It's aimed at protecting the cat, not so much at protecting anybody else, but certainly the changes that can be made to the cat law to protect those pets.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor De Haas, you wish to speak in favour?
Yes, I will. I'd just like to agree with what Councillor Chambers has said, and to add that I believe it's an environmentally sound decision to have a policy like this in place, especially if we can get it through legislation as well. The impact that these cats are having on the environment is absolutely disastrous, and we need to be doing something about it. The law's not just going to protect the wildlife, though; it will help to protect the cats as well.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against or an amendment? Take it you're ready to vote, councillors. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 8 votes to nil. We move on then to item 12.1.3, update on RSPCA Western Australia engagement. You recall that we sent a letter to the RSPCA hoping they would be able to help us a little more. Are there any questions you might have to Mrs. Phillips on this item? No questions? And the recommendation is on page 37. There's no questions. I'll invite you to someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Oborne.
May I please move an alternate recommendation?
Oh, I'm happy to. You can test the meeting with it, yeah.
So the first 2 points as they are written, and then add a dot point 3 that requests the CEO to write. to local MPs to advocate for more resources for our community.
Can I just question, councillor, are you saying more resources
So an extra RSPC officer.
are from RSPCA
Yep.
for Esperance?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll
Request the
just
CEO
give
to
you a
write
chance
to
to,
local MPs to advocate for more resources for our community. Do I put it in brackets?
For more RSPCA resources?
For more RSPCA for more, to request, to advocate for more RSPCA resources for our community.
for our community. Okay, so you like to couple that all together now and read your motion as you put it, and we'll contest it from there?
So I move that Council 1 receive the update on recent interactions with RSPCA Western Australia, and 2, note the Pet Community Action Days will be held in Esperance on the 17th of September and 26th of November 2022, and 3, request the CEO to write to local MPs to advocate for more RSPCA resources for our community.
Thank you. It's moved by councillor Oborne. Is there seconded to the motion? Seconded by councillor De Haas. Councillor Oborne, speak to your motion, please.
Well, firstly, I'd like to thank the staff for meeting with the RSPCA and pursuing this. This is something we talked about a while ago, and it's, you know, we're an isolated community and the RSPCA don't have a presence here, so thank you for following that up. I note with pleasure the Community Action Days because education is important and empowers people, but I also would like to take this opportunity to ask the CEO if Council agrees to write to all our local members, because with a $5.7 billion surplus, we could do with one more RSPCA officer in a town as large and isolated as ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, against the motion? Seconder wish to speak in favour of it? Thank you, councillor De Haas.
I would just like to say thank you to Councillor Oborne. I think she might have read my notes there, so I totally agree with what she has said.
Thank you. Is the speaker against or an amendment? I'll put it to the vote, councillors. Those in favour, please show. Against. That one's carried 8-0 as well. If we go to page 39, we have now moved into the asset management agenda. Page 39 for the item 12.2.1 for the petition to stop the use of 1080 Bates in the Monjamup Special Rule Zone. You'll recall we had a petition brought into us last month. June. It was in June meeting, and we've and so this is the results to that one. Any questions you might have to Mr. Gleave on this item? No questions? Okay. Well, if there's no questions, is someone prepared to move the recommendation, which is on page 42 of your agenda? Councillor Oborne, right?
Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to move another alternative motion.
Can I just clarify, will that be in addition to the current one, or are you looking
There's one
to
that
reword it?
has been prepared earlier.
It's been prepared earlier, thank you very much for that. So you move your motion then in its entirety if you can.
I move that Council 1 note the petition against the use of 1080 Bates in Monjamup Special Rural Zone and acknowledge that there is community interest in the safe and appropriate use of 1080 Bates as part of an integrated pest management program. 2, request the CEO to make a submission to the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development to request consideration of appropriate changes in the Code of Practice for 1080 that finds a balance between agricultural use and neighbouring intense land use. And 3, lay the matter on the table until the outcomes of the incident report being conducted by the Department of Health are released and the current review of the Code of Practice for 1080 has been completed by the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development.
Okay, so that's an alternate motion to the recommendation, which is allowed. So it's been moved by councillor Oborne. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by councillor McMullen. Councillor Oborne, you can speak to your motion, please.
Thank you. I acknowledge that we lack the authority to ban 1080, and that's not what this motion seeks to do. What this motion seeks to do is ask our local staff to give their local knowledge to DPIRD as part of the review, so that DPIRD can make an informed decision that's relevant for this community, because they're making a decision that affects the whole state, and I'd love Esperance to be considered with local knowledge. And finally, I think it's important to allow due process to occur. If we make a determination now, notwithstanding we don't have the authority to do exactly what the petition asks, I think when there's 2 important reviews taking place, we need to allow those authorities the time to make their review, give their recommendations and their findings, and then due process says we make our recommendation from there.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? No speakers against. The seconder wish to speak to the motion, councillor McMullen?
I don't think I could add much further, but it just makes complete sense. We've got 2 matters that directly relate to this decision under review. Let's get all the information on the table before we make a decision. So in the meantime, it makes perfect sense to lay this item on the table.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Or an amendment? Councillor Chambers?
I'd speak against the motion as it stands. Points 1 and 2 I agree with, but I don't agree with point 3, laying the matter on the table. I believe that the intent of this motion, or the intent of this item on council, is whether we look to prohibit the use of 1080 baits within a particular area or a specified area. As explained in the officer's report, I don't think that it states clearly that we don't have the ability to restrict the use of 1080 baits in a specified area. That restriction is handled by other departments. And I don't think that by us laying this on the table benefits anybody other than just prolonging the matter.
Okay. Thank you. That's a speaker against. Speaker in favour? Is there any further speakers in favour? Councillors, I'm happy to speak in favour of this motion as it's been put forward. I don't think there's anything lost by waiting and seeing what comes out of the outcome, so I just think that we can hold for a little longer. Obviously, I think with the incident that's happened, I think people are going to be more careful in the near future. I certainly hope so anyway, and so I think we can just let the all sit and wait until we know we've had an outcome, and we're going to have local input into that outcome. So that should be an understanding of the anything that happens in Esperance that is different to what might happen in other parts of the state when the department is operating this. So I'm happy to support it. Is there a speaker against?
I just question the incident is the only thing being investigated, not the rules around usage. Is how I read it. So it's only the incident that's being investigated. So basically, we're only waiting for a reply of the incident, not about the normal or the regulations. Is that correct?
Well, we've got a motion in debate, but I'd ask Mr Glebe, if you can just clarify what's being investigated.
Some clarification through the President. My initial report identified from DPERB that the Code of Practice is currently under a review. It's probably a 6-month timeframe for that review. It's been undertaken by a DPERB working group. So a secondary process to the investigation of this incident is a review currently being undertaken by DPERB into the Code of Practice.
Thank you. Does that clarify your question, councillor?
I didn't see whether it's correct enough.
Point of order,
Yep.
Mr. May. Point three. Point three of the item doesn't state a time as to how long you intend to lay this on the table.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So I'll have to ask, have you got a period of time that this, you would want this to lay on the table as the original mover of the motion?
That would be like asking how long's a piece of string, because I don't know how long it's going to take Department of Health and or DPERD to do their side-by-side reports. So I was hoping the wording until the outcomes have been conducted and are released. So I guess when Department of Health, when DPERD have finalised their reports and the outcome is released to us, you know, at the next OCM or as soon as possible thereafter, the CEO would bring this back to the table as another agenda item with those two reports.
Councillor, I think it's our normal practice. We endeavour to put a date on it to when we'll lift it off the table. And so my recommendation to you and the other councillors are that we put a time on it, probably 2 months, I would suggest, forward, and then see what we get back then. But this could take some time, as we know, but we can review it at that time when it comes back. It'd be my recommendation to you, councillors. And so I'll hand it back to you. Are you willing to add to that motion a time?
So my understanding from Mr. Glebe is he anticipates it could be 6 months, the reviews, so I could put, lay the matter on the table for 6 months. So
That's being added in?
lay the matter on the table for 6 months until the outcomes, yeah.
Thank you. The seconder willing to support that motion with those words in. Thank you, Councillor McMullen. So now we have a motion form mattered there. Councillor, what up? We had it. I've got to get this right. You spoke against it, or spoke against it. Speaker in favour of it. Against it. In favour of it. Amendment. No amendment. No one speaking against it. I put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against. That is carried 6 votes to 2. We go on then, councillors, to item 12.3.1, a lease renewal for the Howick Communication Tower. The item is on page 43 of your agendas, and the recommendation is on page 43, and the recommendation is on page 45. Are there any questions you might have on this item? Going to Mrs. Baxter. No questions? Is someone prepared then to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Like to read it, thank you.
The officer's recommendation that council, subject to Department of Lands approval, 1, enter into a new lease with Telstra Corporation Limited for portion of lot 524 Howick Road, Howick Reserve, 47255. 2, term of the lease to be 10 years with 2 further term options of 5 years each to commence from the 1st May 2024. 3, charge a lease fee of 100,000 included GST per annum, and council consider this valuation to be a true indication of the current market rental rate, subject to annual CPI increases. 4, charge a lease preparation with the offices including GST, and 5, advertise disposition in accordance or with S 3.58 or below at 1995 of disposing of property.
Councillor O'Donnell, I presume you meant in item 3,
Yes.
$1,100.
I was trying to count the zeros.
Thank you. We've got that sorted out. Is there a seconder to the motion? Thank you, Councillor De Haas. Did you have any, would you like to speak to Councillor O'Donnell? Thank you.
Yes, I would like to speak to, I would like to thank the officers, because I've read in the notes, they went back to Telstra and proposed a rental value of $1,500 per annum, and then Telstra then returned with a requested compromise of $1,000. I'd just like the officers to thank the officers for doing that for the Shire residents.
Thank you. The seconder, sorry, is there a speaker against? Does the seconder wish to speak in favour?
Once again, I would just like to agree with my fellow councillor. Well said.
Thank you. A speaker against? Councillors, I just support it on the basis I don't think we were charging Telstra before for this site. So I think it's very astute work to make sure that they start paying, and they've had it free for about 15 years, I think, so they can't complain about the charges that we're putting on them. Is there a speaker against or an amendment? I put it to vote. Those in favour, please show. Against? That is carried 8 votes to 0. We then move on to the item 12.3.2, delegated update. 16.1, appoint approved and authorised officers building regulations 2012. This item is on page 47 of your agenda, recommendation on page 48. Are there any questions you might have to Mrs. Baxter on this item? No questions? Then somebody prepared to move? Move Councillor Chambers.
Move the officer's recommendation that council, my apologies, move the officer's recommendation that council endorse the delegation 16.1 building regulations 2012 inclusive of amendments, inclusions and deletions.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Chambers. Is it seconded? Seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor, you can speak to your motion. Thank you.
I think the only thing that needs to be said is that this helps streamline the process, which is always a good thing.
Is there a speaker against? Councillor O'Donnell, do you wish to speak in favour?
I just agree with Councillor Chambers, thank you.
Thank you. Speakers against? No speakers against. No amendments? I just point out to you, Councillor, this requires an absolute majority because it is a delegation to the CO. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against? That is carried. 8 votes to 0. Thank you. We move on then to item 12.3.3, the Financial Services Report for July 2022. This comes up on page 50 of your agenda. Are there any questions to Mrs. Baxter on this item? No questions? Okay then, somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 50? Moved by Councillor O'Born. Would you like to read?
I move the officer's recommendation that council receive the attached report entitled Monthly Financial Services Report, incorporating the Statement of Financial Activity for the month of July 2022.
Been moved by Councillor O'Born. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor O'Brien, you can speak to your motion.
As always, I'd like to thank the staff for their hard work on these reports, and in particular, the hard work on the budget. I noted that there's been a lot of follow-up work done on page 55, and I also commend the new look, which makes it easier to notice things when you've been reading the same report for years on end. Keeping it fresh helps us to read everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against? Seconder wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Is there a speaker against? I put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that's carried 8 votes to nil. So then we go into executive services. Item 12.4.1, the information bulletin, which is on page 100 of your agenda. And is there any questions to Mr. Burge? I think I got it right. I guessed it. Yes. Any questions to Mr. Burge on this report? If there's no questions, is someone prepared to move the recommendation as on page 100? Councillor O'Donnell has moved.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that council accepts 1, information bulletin July 2022, 2, council priorities summary corporate performance July 2022.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hass. So Councillor Hass is seconded. So Councillor O'Donnell, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I need to say that it's always interesting to read through the information bulletin, and also note that it reflects in other documents that we read with what's going on in the Shire, like the council plan and different things. So I like that it reflects it, and you can see what's going on in our Shire. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Does the seconder wish to speak to it? Councillor Hass.
Just to add that, yes, it's always a very interesting read. It might take a little time to get through it sometimes, but it's a well worthwhile read.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against or any amendments? I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? Against, that is carried 8 votes to nil. And so we move on. There's that's the end of the resolutions. The reports of committees, there's nil, as I see it this month. And there's motions of which notice has been given, there's nil. Mr. CEO, thank you. And so we move on then to members' questions with or without notice. Are there any members' questions who wish to ask questions at the present time? Nil. Right. Urgent business approved by decision. There's no urgent business that's come forward. So that can, it doesn't conclude. I'll bring forward from the behind closed doors issues. Question time. Dr. Newkirk, no questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so is someone prepared to move that we go behind closed doors? Thank you, Councillor Chambers, seconded by Councillor Graham. Does it require any debate? No debate. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against? That is carried 8 votes to nil. So So, well, we won't open the doors. Doors are open. I'd like to acknowledge those people that are still online and awaiting our decisions on what we might have done with the 2 items behind closed doors. We had the first item was a decision to bestow, I should say, the Key of the Shire honour to Dr. Walter Byrne for his great services to the Esperance community. And the second item that we dealt with and made a decision on was to award a tender for the detailed concept design and business case for James Street Cultural Precinct development, and we've agreed to award that to the Christo Group, which have made presentations to council, and they have put forward some very, very good planning, and I'm sure that the community will enjoy working with them when the public consultation stages of that work is being done. And so I thank you to all those that have waited for us to come out with those decisions, and it's appropriate that I declare the meeting closed now.